The few remaining opposition parties in parliament say the government of national unity has not weakened the country's opposition politics. At least 10 parties have joined the ANC in the newly constituted GNU. 11 of the 18 political parties in parliament are part of the GNU, and collectively they represent over 70% of the votes cast in the 2024 elections. And for now, it is only the EFF, the MK Party and Action SA who have openly rejected the GNU invitation. Some opponents of the GNU have expressed reluctance to join over fear of a weakened opposition. The EFF has promised to take opposition politics to another level in the 7th Democratic Parliament, while Action SA has vowed to use its opposition status to champion accountability. And for more on the makings of an effective opposition, we're now joined by political analyst Professor André Duvenhage, and he joins us now via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, 70% of the parties in Parliament constituting of that GNU. One would immediately ask, has the opposition been weakened?
Well, the answer in simple terms is no. What is happening is that the format or the structure of opposition politics has changed. It doesn't say if all parties are in the government of national unity that all of them will agree on all the major issues. In a way, we now have opposition within the executive, within the government of national unity. And what is important is to make the point that opposition within the context of a democracy can take on many forms. Ordinary people can also, by criticizing government, take an opposition stance. The legal processes can criticize and redirect the government. The legislator can redirect government in many ways. So there's many forms of opposition. In general terms, I would like to differentiate between two types of opposition. The one is anti-system opposition. That is the type of opposition you cannot associate with democracies. When it comes to democracies, we are talking about opposition within the framework of an existing system. And from the previous clips we have seen, it is quite clear that our system is lacking a framework for the complicated nature of coalition politics and the underlying opposition nature within that politics. So there's a need for that framework. But when it comes to democracy, it's also about a set of values. And you must take into consideration things like tolerance, like respect, the levels of knowledge, skills, your ability to present yourselves. And democracy is qualifying these aspects in certain ways.
And Professor, one would ask, I mean, I'm sure a lot of South Africans are asking themselves, if you form part of this GNU, and of course, we've seen that those who are part of the GNU are part of government in some way or form, how do you hold each other accountable if most of you in this GNU have a lot to lose?
Well, that is the challenge of the government of national unity, and this has also related to what many people are calling the art of politics, keeping people together with different views and different orientations. And that is why the value system and the ethical system is so important. That is why I mentioned the thing of tolerance, the thing of mutual respect. What we have seen in South African politics over the last years, and I think specifically about the role of the EFF as an opposition party, for me that was a very negative role. It didn't respect systems, processes, and procedures. And unfortunately, in parts of our politics, this has become a culture. And that is, in essence, against democratic principles. But I must tell you, when it comes to a one-party dominant system with one formal opposition, this is a relative simple form of opposition politics. When you enter the phase of coalitions and coalition politics, you need to step up to a next level. And that is currently the challenge for South Africa. And so far, we are not always doing that well, but we are progressing. And we made some progress over the last year. And to me, that is the growing process towards what we can call a mature democracy. But what is clear, there's a long way ahead for us.
And Professor, I mean, a bit earlier on, you touched on the EFF and their stance in the National Assembly. And, you know, going into this GNU, we heard them say that they are very happy to be on the opposition. And they have vowed that, you know, there will be an effective opposition. What do they actually mean by that? They've even said that, you know, they will no longer be disrupting Parliament. Is this what we need right now? An effective of course, a political party in the opposition, especially one like the EFF?
My take on it is that what we need in the first place is rather forms of cooperation, leaders that would try to work together for the common good. South Africa is very much a divided society on many lines, socially, culturally, economically, and so on. And I think we are entering a time where it is more important to work together than to define differences. And I'm concerned about the role the EFF is playing. Their role is not the role of a constructive opposition party. It's rather a form of disrupting the government and trying to stop political processes. We need to wait and see how the MK party is going to act in this regard, because the MK party is probably going to be the formal opposition, and I believe they will be supported by a party like the EFF. And my take on it is that these two parties have some anti-system tendencies in their approach to politics, and I do not think that is healthy for South Africa's democracy.
So what kind of opposition does a country like ours need, especially now that, you know, we have this GNU, something that we've never really had before when it comes to 70% of these political parties, you know, being part of it?
Well, the first important point is the fact that 70% are part of the government of national unity doesn't mean they are not going to differ about fundamental issues. So I believe within these structures, they are going to criticize each other. It's not to say that they are eliminated from opposition roles. The other aspect is that when it comes to opposition, we need opposition within a certain set of values that we can associate it with democracy. And these values are things like respect for your opponent, respect for the system, for the constitution, the structures, the protocols, and the people that is functioning within that system. Another thing is that you need to have the knowledge, the skills of understanding what is it you are arguing and the way you are contributing towards what people in the democratic terms refer to as the common good. As I mentioned earlier, I think it is time that both government and opposition parties must work together for the common good. And that means to me that we must re-emphasize democratic values and related practices and link this to opposition roles we need to play in society and politics, because opposition roles is very critical in a democracy, but it needs to be constructive and not always destructive.
All right, Professor, I hope those political parties are indeed listening to those wise words coming from you. Of course, saying that political parties need to work together for the common good. That's a political analyst, Professor André Duvenhage, there, just giving us his insight when it comes to an effective opposition in Parliament.